Szanowni Państwo, a zatem zaczynamy konferencję prasową Państwowej Komisji
Ladies and gentlemen,
członków Państwowej Komisji Wyborczej.
let us begin the press conference of the National Electoral Commission.
I rozpoczynamy konferencję. Będę prosił o zabranie głosu przewodniczącego Państwowej Komisji Wyborczej.
And we are now beginning the conference. I would like to ask the chairman of the National Electoral Commission, Mr. Stefan Jaworski, to take the floor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The National Electoral Commission hereby informs that, first of all territorial electoral commissions have finalized the works related to the elections order for the 16th of November 2014. They have prepared reports from voting and elections and have made them public. Secondly, all voivodeship electoral commissions have finalized counting the results of the elections to the voivodeship assemblies. Those results have been announced by the information being handed out in individual territorial commissions' premises. The electoral commissioners, based on Article 168, paragraph 1 of the Electoral Code, prepare the announcements about the collective results of the elections in individual voivodeships. In the elections of to the municipal councils, voivodeship assemblies, and to the positions of the presidents and mayors of the cities and heads of municipalities. Such announcements have been also placed on the website of the National Electoral Commissions. They will also be published in the voivodeship journals of law. In accordance with Articles 382 and 374 of the Electoral Code, the National Electoral Commission, having received electronically the announcements that I have mentioned from all the electoral commissions, prepares announcements about elections to the local governments in Poland. The National Electoral Commission announces these in the Journal of Laws and makes them public. The announcements are going to be made available on the website of the National Electoral Commission. Fourthly, the municipal and commune electoral commissions have got had important preparations to the voting, which is going to be provided in 190 communes. The voting will be conducted by the territorial electoral commissions on the 20th of November. And today we are going to announce the results of the vote to all the voivodeship assemblies. As far as the mandates are concerned, obtained by individual electoral committees on the national scale, in the voivodeship assemblies there were 555 mandates. Polskie Stronnictwo received 159, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość 169, Platforma Obywatelska 179, SLD, Lewica Razem 28, Bezpartyjni Samorządowcy 4, Lepsze Lubuskie 2, German Minorities 7, Ruch Autonomii Śląska 4, Komitet Ryszarda Grobelnego 2, and Bezpartyjni Pomorze Zachodnie 1. In individual voivodeships in Dolnośląskie, PSL 5, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość 9, Platforma Obywatelska 16, SLD 2, samorządowcy 4, Kujawsko-Pomorskie, PSL 10, PiS 7, PO 14, SLD 2, Lubelskie, PSL 12, PiS 13, PO 7, SLD 1, Lubuskie, PSL 8, PiS 5, PO 10, SLD 5, Lepsze Lubuskie 2, Łódzkie, PSL 10, PiS 12, PO 10, SLD 1, Małopolskie, PSL 8, PiS 17, PO 14, Mazowieckie, PSL 16, PiS 19, PO 15, SLD 1, Opolskie, PSL 8, PiS 5, PO 9, SLD 1, German Minority 7, Podkarpackie, PSL 9, PiS 19, PO 5, Podlaskie, PSL 9, PiS 12, PO 8, SLD 1, Pomorskie, PSL 7, PiS 9, PO 17, Śląskie, PSL 7, PiS 14, PO 17, SLD 3, Ruch Autonomii Śląska 4, Świętokrzyskie, PSL 17, PiS 8, PO 3, SLD 2, Warmińsko-Mazurskie, PSL 14, PiS 6, PO 9, SLD 1, Wielkopolskie, PSL 12, PiS 8, PO 13, SLD 4, and Komitet Ryszarda Grobelnego 2. Zachodniopomorskie, PSL 7, PiS 6, PO 12, SLT 4, Bezpartyjni Pomorze Zachodnie 1. At the same time, in connection with a great interest in the problems on invalid votes, I would like to briefly present to you information according to the units of the local government. And the scale on the entire country in all elections to the local governments, 9.76% of the votes were invalid. In the elections to municipal councils and communal councils, 5.16, to communal councils, 16.67, to voivodeship assemblies, 17.93, and in the elections of heads of communes and mayors and president of the cities, 12.14%. Let me remind you that in 2010, that is during the previous elections, on the national scales, in all types of the elections, the average was 7.89. As far as voivodeship assemblies are concerned, the largest number of invalid votes were cast in the case of Wielkopolskie Voivodeship Assembly, 22.77%. In the second position, Lubuskie Voivodeship, 20.54%. And the third position, Warmińsko-Mazurskie Voivodeship, 19.86%. The lowest percentage in Podlaskie Voivodeship, 14.57%. Ladies and gentlemen, we do realize that because of the failure of the IT system, to get to know the results of the elections has taken much longer than was expected. However, that time was necessary in order to accurately and reliably count all the votes and to establish the official results of the elections. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we can start the round of questions. I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves, given the name of your editorial office, and also please remember that we may have one question per one editorial office. Polish Press Agency. Łukasz Konarski, Radio Z. Before we discuss detailed results of the elections, let me ask you about the situation that happened in the seat of the National Electoral Commission. How would you comment on the occupation of the seat of the National Electoral Commission? Well, I'm not going to comment on the situation. What I can tell you is what the situation looked like from our point of view. I deny that we had invited any of the demonstrating groups here. On that day, a meeting of the National Electoral Commission was going to take place. When I received a telephone call with the information about this planned meeting, I was warned that there was demonstration going on around the building. When walking here, I saw police cars. And on the premises, there were 3 members of the National Electoral Commission, including myself, plus the secretary of the commission. We heard the sounds of the approaching demonstration. People were shouting. And we got information from the director that the people from the demonstration came into the building. And we heard that those who entered the building by force wanted to meet with the National Electoral Commission. We actually were very surprised because the building was supposed to be closed, and this is the building of the Chancellery of the President of Poland. After a while, we decided that we were all going to go down. On the ground floor, we saw a crowd of people entering the building. We heard people shouting. We're entering. Some people were running up the stairs already. And then the people responsible for the public relations of the National Electoral Commission proposed that we move to one of the rooms. That was the room where conferences took place. And we said that we could meet 5 or 6 people because that was the room that was available. We've heard after a while that the people from the demonstration came and took our seats, and they wanted to meet in the main room. We decided that we couldn't let them into the office of the secretary, and we heard again that we were supposed to come here, so we went upstairs. There we saw some scared ladies working for the office, and well, between the ground floor and the first floor, there are no guards, so I'm not surprised that we're scared. And what about the later events? Well, when the members of the commissions gathered here, we decided to interrupt our works in order to provide for our safety. As I've said, there are no barriers between individual floors, and since people entered the building by force, we knew that we didn't have any protection whatsoever. There was an announcement made on that. So let's have another question. TVP Info. Well, you gave the numbers saying how many mandates individual electoral committees won. Could you give us some statistical data about the percentages and the numbers of votes cast for individual committees? Because this will also tell us something. Well, this information you can find on our website. We have not prepared this data because there is huge amount of data there. The website is going to be updated, of course. We are also going to send these results by email, so definitely you'll get the information. Samuel Prejla from Gazeta Polska Codziennik. I have a question regarding the postulates related to the elections to be made invalid and another elections to be organized. There was also a postulate regarding the a request for the presence of the observers from CC.
Odpowiedzi na pytania, które pan zadaje, padały już w mediach. Nam wypada
Well, so the answers to these questions were already given in the mass media. In our opinion, there is no basis or the legal possibility to make the elections invalid. We've given this information many times. The only possibility that exists is to submit electoral protests, and if these are considered justified on the scale of individual local areas, the elections may be made invalid. TVN 24. Well, we have nothing against it. We believe that our activities are transparent. So if OSCE decides that they would like to send observers, as I understand, the problem with the technical break is not possible because of the sound problems, because this is a live broadcasting. Now it's okay? We can continue. We can continue. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for this short break, and we can continue. Łukasz Jedliński from TVN 24. Several days ago, you were asking for patience. Are there any conclusions drawn from the problems in the elections? What has failed? How could this be avoided in the future, etc.? Thank you very much. If you mean the IT system, as has already been said, yes, there has been a failure. And as I've said before during one of the press conferences, the new person heading the National Electoral Office will appoint a team of people who will investigate in detail what the problems with the IT system consisted in, when they occurred, and how this impacts the implementation of the agreement concluded with the system provider. As for other problems that we've had during the elections, there was a problem of a certain negligence from the territorial electoral commissions in the preparation of ballot papers. I mean, the National Electoral Commission defined very precisely how to prepare and print the ballot papers and how to supervise the printing process. Unfortunately, as you know, and the National Electoral Commission also knows that it has not worked everywhere. There were ballot papers missing one or two lists. There have also been cases in which on the voting cards, on the ballot papers, next to the names of the candidates, there were no boxes where the people who voted were supposed to put the cross. In those cases, if they were detected earlier, the commissions ordered a reprinting of the ballot papers. That resulted in a short break. However, it did not entail the necessity to prolong the hours of opening of the premises when voting took place. There have also been some failure in the operation of the district electoral commissions. The day before the voting, the places where the ballot papers were stored and secured, the commissions should have changed each individual piece of paper and its quality. Well, as it turns out, it has not always been done correctly, and therefore then in the voting process, the electorate made some negative observations and had reservations to the quality of the papers. I believe that the National Electoral Commission has done its utmost, defining step by step how to proceed. It's possible, this is the role of the National Electoral Commissions, but also the role of the local governments and individual levels to make the members of the commissions more sensitive to this problem. I mean, it's not possible for people to come to vote and receive the ballot papers which do not, which are not correct. So these are the main problems that have been identified in the process of elections, which needs to be eliminated in order for the next elections to take place in much better and friendlier atmosphere, more enhanced for the elections. Krzysztof Berenda for RMF Radio. What steps have been taken by the National Electoral Commission in order for the second round of the elections to proceed smoother? And what is the IT-related preparation for the next year's elections? I understand that there will be a new membership of the Commission, but what else? And what about the invalid vote? What to do in order to reduce the number of invalid votes? Maybe the ballot papers should be somehow changed, or some other solution could be applied. Minister Czaplicki. As for the preparation to the second round of the elections to the position of the head of communes and mayors and president of cities, this is going to take place in 890 electoral commissions. And in the district electoral commissions can conduct arithmetical calculations, and that system worked also during the first round. Then the problem occurred at a higher level where the proportionality-based calculations were conducted. So we can be sure that at the level of the district electoral commissions there shouldn't be any problems. But irrespective of that, the National Electoral Commission in its guidelines always indicates that anything wrong happens, the votes should be counted manually, which in the problem of the second round should not constitute, in the case of the second round, should not constitute any problem. So I believe that this result should be calculated very soon and very precisely. As to the future, I have told you during one of the conferences that, in my opinion, it was possible to use the existing systems to use the system owned by the National Electoral Office. In 2012, we provided services during the elections to the presidential elections, although, well, in 2011, we conducted elections to the Sejm and the Senate. The legislation has changed, but not to the extent which would make us exclude the software that had been previously prepared altogether. Also, in the parliamentary elections, which are proportional elections, we used the software which actually worked in practice. So in my opinion, which of course may be wrong, we believed that after the necessary modernization of the systems, because, as I have said, the regulations have slightly changed. For example, you would need to add the field for the number of people voting by correspondence, or having the representative voting for them. But well, such modifications could be made, and they wouldn't be too costly, and the software could be used. According to our analysts, and I have to rely on their evaluation, this could be done in such a way as to ensure that presidential elections and then the autumn elections to the Sejm and to the Senate proceed smoothly. But this will be the task of the new management of the National Electoral Office, which needs to analyze the situation that has occurred and to analyze the financial possibilities. We have certain funds assigned for such actions for the next year, and we have to investigate the possibility of ordering modernization of the previous system, order it from the company that developed that system, not the last system used in the elections. The criteria of deciding when the vote is invalid are defined in the electoral code. Let me remind that, because we actually discussed that on Friday. But in the case of elections to the commune councils and to the position of the mayors and presidents of cities, the vote is invalid if the cross has been put next to the name of more than one candidate or has not been put at all. Now, in the case of the remaining elections, that is the powiat councils, voivodeship assemblies, and the district councils of the capital city of Warsaw, is invalid when the cross has been put on more than one list of candidates, or has not been placed on any list at all. Those ballot papers are with no mark placed are called empty papers. Only in the case of elections to the positions of the heads of communes and mayors and president of the cities, the district electoral commissions need to decide which ballot papers are invalid because they are empty, or which are invalid because the cross has been put on more than one voting list. In the case of the remaining types of the elections, it's not really possible to decide, to find out how many votes are invalid because the ballot papers were empty, or and what number of votes are invalid because of the other reason. So these are the criteria of validity or invalidity of votes. And as for the reasons why the voters cast invalid votes, well, the National Electoral Commission cannot give the answer to this question because we do not conduct such research, and it's not the task of the National Commission. Well, as has been said during one of the press conferences, this is a very good area for observation for some other fields of science, like sociology, for example, or psychology. So, as for the reasons why voters cast the votes on the empty cards, or the reasons why they incorrectly put the required mark on the ballot papers, are not the competence of the National Electoral Commission. Well, I have a question to the Minister, because when talking about the problems of the elections, you've mentioned the negligence of the district electoral commissions in the preparation of the ballot papers, or not checking the papers early enough. Can there be any consequences suffered by these people who have not performed their duties properly? And as for the contract with the company who supplied the current IT system, isn't it concluded for a longer term? No, this contract has been concluded only for the elections to be conducted on the 16th of November. And now the contract expires. We are not planning to extend this contract. I believe that the new management of the National Electoral Office will, of course, analyze and review this contract and will take certain legal steps. As for the responsibility or accountability that you've mentioned, well, it could be possible, but actually Judge Zabłocki, who specializes in criminal law, he could say whether such consequences or sanctions are possible, because members of the electoral commissions are protected as public officials, but they also have the same responsibilities as public officials. So if I can refer this question to Judge Zabłocki, I would be very grateful to him if he provided the answer. Well, thank you very much, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I can only briefly answer this question because members of the National Electoral Commission should not interfere with the scope of authority that does not belong to them. I don't want to avoid this question, but please understand the situation in which people who would be formulating the accusations, and I'm talking about criminal accusations here, such accusations may be put forward only by the enforcement authorities. And the judiciary could decide on such sanctions. And I'm not talking about the judges being members of electoral commissions, but the judges from ordinary courts. So I don't want to interfere with the areas of responsibility of those authorities, because each authority should operate within the scope of its own authority. But since Minister Czaplicki put me in this uncomfortable situation, I have to admit, I can say something theoretically only. The existence of such a provision in the Electoral Code, stipulating that the increased protection provided to people who are members of electoral bodies, and this protection is higher, is defined as the protection that is equal to the protection offered to public officials, but this entails additional obligations, such obligations as have to be made to public officials. And now, theoretically, but this is purely theoretical, I can refer you to the content of Article 231 of the Criminal Code, saying that the public official who, in this case, well, not so much exceeded his or her authority, but has neglected his obligations, is subject to a specific penalty. This type of behaviors of public officials is also punishable in the case when a public official operates involuntarily, so doesn't have an intention, a potential intention to do something wrong. But at the same time, if it's involuntary crime, the harm has to be significant. This is paragraph 3 of Article 231. So, in that particular case, have these premises been met? I mean, was it voluntary or involuntary? This would have to be analyzed in each individual case. It would need to be assessed by a specific prosecutor, and if the prosecutor decided to sue a given person, it would be up to a given court. And I cannot say more on that. Krzysztof Kowalczyk from Polish Press Agency. In connection with the problems that we are discussing here, are you going to have any additional guidelines for the second round of the elections? Will any actions be taken to prevent similar problems? And is this the last press conference summarizing the elections? Will another one will be organized, or should we just refer to the information available at the website? Well, this is our last conference before the second round of the elections. Of course, we have undertaken a number of measures aimed at efficient second round of the elections. But let me emphasize that the main responsibility is that of the commune-level electoral commissions. And we are going to just focus on announcing the collective results of the elections, of the second round of the elections, of course. First of all, well, those were legal and organizational steps, which are part of the tasks of the National Electoral Commission. The question is not up to the microphone. On the website, the information is updated all the time. So should Poland wait for another week to get to know the results of the elections? Ladies and gentlemen, will you allow us to respond? Because for now, we cannot respond. As we've said, at the moment, detailed results of the elections are being worked on according to individual electoral committees, according to the geographical division, etc., etc. And this information will be available at the website of the National Electoral Commission, and the information should be available tomorrow. The results will be available in form of tables. Maybe you remember after the elections in 2010, such results were given. The number of invalid votes, the turnout, etc., etc. And this information will be available, hopefully tomorrow. So you just hope. Well, one question per one journalist. That was the rule. And could you go to the secretariat? Ladies and gentlemen, as I've said, these results are now being worked on because not all of them have been entered into the system of announcement of collective results. The question is not being asked to the microphone. Well, the results concerning the split of the mandates have been announced, and the remaining results are going to be published on the website. Once again, please try to understand. Local government elections are quite specific. The National Electoral Commission gives the collective results only, general information. Also, we prepare kind of appendices to the announcement in form of tables, and these tables are being prepared at the moment. We are working on the tables. Once the data are available, they are going to be published on the website. Definitely tomorrow the website is going to work properly. Well, this is not fair to other journalists. And again, the question is not asked to the microphone. Sorry, the questions are not asked to the microphone. So the translation is not possible.
Bardzo prosimy pana.
But unfortunately, the answer is not given to the microphone either. Basically, the question is why full results are not available. Could you please switch on the microphone? You know, and I've repeated that many times, we can inform you about what we have received from the territorial electoral commissions. You also know that not all the announcements of the electoral commissioners have been already prepared and made available. As for the division of mandates between individual electoral committees, we did that based on the reports provided by the territorial commissions. But unfortunately, based on the same reports, it was not possible to work out on the results that you're expecting, that is the percentages. Please listen to the explanations that are given. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we've already exhausted the limit of one question per one editorial office. I would like to ask What were the reasons why you have decided to resign? Aren't you worried about the big number of invalid votes? During the previous election, during the previous elections, we knew how many votes were invalid because empty ballot papers were provided. Will this be possible in the case of the current elections also? Don't you think that the instructions and the information campaign that was organized regarding the elections could be misleading to the electorate? Let me repeat, as far as the elections other than the elections of the mayors and presidents of the cities and heads of the communes and elections to commune councils, we will not be able to find out what part of the invalid votes resulted from the fact that the ballot papers were empty and what part of the invalid votes resulted from the fact that the required mark that was supposed to be put on the ballot papers was put incorrectly. During my first answer, I tried to clarify to you, explain to you, that the provisions of the electoral code do not impose an obligation on the members of the district electoral commissions to analyze the reasons why the votes were invalid, as opposed to the elections to the position of the mayors and presidents of cities, heads of communes, and members of commune councils. There are appropriate fields in the reports available for entering such information. As I understand, you are interested more in the remaining types of the elections, and you would like to find out how many invalid votes were caused by empty ballot papers being handed to the Commission. We don't have this information because, according to the legislation, the analysis of the reasons of invalidity of the votes is not required. Let me also add that the legislator does not put an obligation on the electoral bodies to investigate the intentions of the electorate. We know that the intention of the elections is voting in a positive manner. You vote in order to elect the candidate. If the voter does not vote for some reason or does not vote at all, our task is only to count the votes. If anybody is interested in the intentions of the electorate, and here I mean researchers, sociologists, politologists, they can organize a study or research and present the relevant reports to the public. I understand that the question concerns those ballot papers in form of a booklet. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with reminding you that this institution of ballot papers in form of a booklet is nothing new. And you're speaking about it as if it was used for the first time, and hence so many problems and invalid votes. Well, probably all those who are saying that did not participate in the elections in the spring to the European Parliament. What ballot papers did you have then? Again, in form of booklets. But let us be more precise. For the first time, such booklets were used during the elections in 1991, in the parliamentary elections. a brochure.
1993 roku
In 1993,
do Sejmu broszura,
again, elections to the same,
broszura,
2001,
broszura,
again, brochure or booklet. In 2005 and 2007,
albo jedna strona,
well, either one page or a booklet or brochure.
chwilę nawiążę,
That depended on the number or of the lists that were registered. 2011, a brochure.
jak chodzi o wybory do rad,
As for the elections to commune councils, again, let me remind you briefly that in 1998, 2002, 2006, 2000 and 2010,
jedna strona lub
there was one page or a brochure, again, depending on the number of the lists registered. In the elections to the powiat councils, exactly the same situation. Until 2010, just one page or a brochure, depending on the number of candidate lists registered. And exactly the same situation in the case of elections to the voivodeship assemblies. Ladies and gentlemen,
poprzednich akcji wyborczych
in no other case previously,
karta
a problem was voiced
w istotny
that
sposób
voting ballot papers in form of a brochure or a booklet
na sposób.
could influence the behavior of the electorate.
Ja chcę nawiązać w tym kontekście, a
In this context,
do tego właściwego pana
let me refer
obiecuję
to your, I mean, I'm going to go back to your question, but let me
odpowiadając na tak zbiorczo na problem kart broszurowanych.
say something more general about
Państwowa Komisja
this
Wyborcza nie może
brochure form of the ballot papers, and I would like to refer to two situations which we must not
tym razem
neglect describing.
doszło do
This time,
postawienia zarzutów tego typu,
accusations were made
które są dla Państwowej Komisji
that
Wyborczej wprost
are
obraźliwe.
insulting for the National Electoral Commission.
Bardzo poważne zarzuty.
Two very serious accusations were made. One of them,
Przez kilka dni
during several days,
kolportowany w rozlicznych telewizjach,
was
najpierw przez
broadcast on different TV stations.
dołączyli się do
First,
kolportowania
one of the well-known politicians
i polewa
mentioned that,
kolegów
and then
na
other politicians joined.
w charakterze
And-
odbywając takie tournée po tych różnych stacjach.
Well, the accusation was
Autor tego zarzutu twierdził, że lista PSL
that the PSL
była pierwsza w
list
kolejności.
was the
W związku z
first
tym
one
Państwowa Komisja Wyborcza
in the booklet, and therefore
dokonała
the
ustalenia
National
takiego wzoru karty
Electoral
właśnie w postaci
Commission
karty zbroszurowanej,
decided to make a brochure
aby rzekomo
in order
autora tego zarzutu
to supposedly, according to the author of
faworyzowało
this
tą
accusation,
listę w dokonywanym przez wyborcę
to
wyborze.
put this particular list in a privileged position. Well, this accusation, ladies and gentlemen, didn't have anything to do with reliability
Oczywistymi faktami.
or anything to do with the obvious facts.
Przecież Państwo sami najlepiej
You
pamiętacie,
remember very well
kiedy było losowanie komitetów,
when there was a
numerów
drawing of the number of committees.
komitetów miało miejsce dnia
It took place on the 17th of
2014 roku.
October
Na ustalenie
2014,
zbroszurowanej
and
miało miejsce uchwałą Państwowej
the resolution of the National Electoral Commission of the 11th of August 2014
miesiące wcześniej.
decided, specified the form in which the ballot papers were going to be prepared. And therefore,
Chcę tego powiedzieć.
publication of this
Informacje o
type
charakterze
of
kontynuacyjnych
uh,
było dla nas szczególnie bolesne.
information or such accusations was very painful for us. And the second fact from yesterday,
Bardzo znanych polityków,
another very well-known politician,
iż w dniu wczorajszym
went so far
postawił Państwowej Komisji
as to
Wyborczej zarzut
accused the National Electoral Commission
ustaliła wzór
that
karty cały czas mowa o tych
it
kartach
has
zbroszorowanych,
established the template
który jest
ballot of the ballot papers in form of a
wypowiadał
brochure,
się ten z panów sprzeczny z paragrafem
which
40.
is
No, proszę Państwa,
which constitutes an infringement of paragraph
trzeba
40.
rozładować sytuację.
Well, sometimes you just need to say something for people to get relaxed. So it's not like paragraph 40, but rather paragraph 22 that's been infringed. First of all, the Electoral Code does not include paragraph 40. I mean, the third MP just forgot that he passed the Parliamentary Act, including articles, not paragraphs. But, well, in the Electoral Code, there are articles, and I would like this person who made that accusation that we made an illegal model template of the ballot papers. So I would like to ask this person to point out exactly to which part of Article 40 is infringed. Is it paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe paragraph 5, which reads that it's the National Electoral Commission who specify the template ballot papers. Do we need any more comments? Well, maybe we should ask. And if the National Electoral Commission acted illegally, then why hadn't that been pointed out to by that particular gentleman when he voted in the spring in the parliamentary elections, or in all the previous elections that I listed 5 minutes ago? Let us go back to the last theme connected with the possibility, because this is how I understand it, of, well, misleading the electorate by, well, providing people with the brochure, having several pages. But you have clear indication, page 1 of 13, for example, etc. So it might happen that somebody would put the cross on page 1 and then, well, that the person figured out that there was a wrong electoral commission and then put crosses on some other pages. But, as I've said, the same type of ballot papers were used in previous elections. And please remember that in those brochures included an instruction on how to vote. And similar instructions were given in two other documents in each district electoral commission. One of such documents was the official instruction, but there were also clearly legible instructions in form of pictures, logos. And also, I've heard, and this is the last thing I wanted to say, that accusations have been made that there were some wrong instructions given by the members of the National Electoral Commission. I remember the press conference on Friday last week. Judge Grzelka was describing the whole procedure very precisely. And from what I know, the National Electoral Commission had 2 spots. Please tell me which of them was misleading, because I may refer to such accusation only if you tell me which one of the 2 spots that were aired,
tych spotów był mylący.
and which
Bo ja się
specific element
do
of
tego zarzutu dopiero
this
wtedy,
particular spot was
który z
misleading.
tych dwóch spotów, a były tylko dwa spoty, który był mylący i który z
Well,
elementów,
I've had
któregokolwiek z tych spotów
accusations
był mylący.
those
Do mnie docierały zarzuty tego typu,
in the mass
bo to,
media
w-
that
znów przez niektórych z polityków
that you need to put a cross
artykułowane
in the
w mediach,
box on the card,
że mowa była
and well, the brochure had several pages.
krzyżyk w kratce na
Well,
karcie,
in other words, cards.
a karta zbroszurowana
Well,
miała
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but
no, stron.
if you've seen the spot, 4
To kart, proszę Państwa,
cards of ballot papers are shown,
ale
each of different color.
jest
And you know that you just need to put one cross of each of them.
pokazywane są
So,
cztery karty.
What
Cztery karty o różnych.
is there that might mislead the voters in that?
Należy postawić
Or maybe you could point out to some other elements that we don't see, and then we will
typu pouczenia
refer to that.
mylącego czy niezrozumiałego. Jeżeli Państwo wskażecie jakieś inne elementy, których my się nie możemy dopatrzyć, będziemy się mogli do tego ustosunkowywać.
Dziękuję Panie Sędzio. Chciałbym na pytanie Pana chociaż częściowo zaspokoić
Well, thank you very much, Judge.
całkowicie. W skali kraju wyniku
I would like to try to at least partially answer your question. Sorry, I won't be able to fully
PSL uzyskał
give you a full answer.
28,68%.
On the national scale, the situation in PSL
PiS
obtained
26,80%.
23.76% of valid votes, of course, valid votes.
PSL
Peace
26,85%.
26.85%.
26,85%.
Voivodeship assemblies,
26,33%.
PSL
No i jeszcze
23.68, Peace 26.85, and PL 26.36,
Jeszcze chciałbym
and SLD
nawiązać do pytań pana redaktora
8.87. Those were the committees which mainly received the mandates.
rezygnacji. Proszę o
Hopefully this satisfies your interest. And with reference to the question asked by the journalist from TVM, and we didn't answer the question regarding the resignation, so I'd like to ask the judge to answer. Well, just a few comments by way of introduction. Probably this is the last chance that we have to articulate certain things that are related to this question. Let me emphasize, first of all, that the National Electoral Commission is not an omnipotent body in all electoral matters, especially as regards local elections to local governments. As we've already said, this is the responsibility of the district and constituency electoral commissions. They are responsible for running the elections. So the National Electoral Commission does not count the votes cast either efficiently or not efficiently. The National Electoral Commission supervises that the electoral bodies who directly participate in the organization and running of the and conducting of the elections, that they proceed in accordance with the legal provisions. So we only supervise the process. We don't organize the elections. Let me also remind you that approximately 300,000 members of the territorial and district electoral commissions are taking place. So the supervision that we have over their operation, supervision performed from Warsaw, is pretty limited. The second related issue
stanowczością podkreślić,
is that of
powołując jeszcze raz na to, że Państwowa
responsibility of the members of the National Electoral Commission for
nadzór nad przestrzeganiem prawa
organizational financial matters related to the elections. I would like to emphasize once again
funkcjonuje
the National Electoral Commission
biuro wyborcze,
supervises
odrębnym, aczkolwiek
compliance with the electoral law,
komisją wyborczą, organem o własnych
and
ustawowych
we also have the National Electoral
prawa biura wyborcze,
Office, which is a separate
pieniędzy na
organization, a separate body, although of course there are links between the office and the commission. And the National Electoral Office also has funds available for the organization of the election, so it's the responsibility of the office to organize tender procedures and concluding contracts related to the organization of elections. But the National Electoral Commission, because this is the leading electoral body, gives its face to the elections. Well, in the existing situation, I'm not going to quote its elements, because of the critique that we suffered from. We've decided that
Panie redaktorze, bardzo proszę, żeby to już było
it will be better
Szanowni Państwo,
if the National
myślę, że to będzie
Electoral Commission, having a new face,
informacyjna agencja radiowa. Ja mam
organizes the next elections.
w jasny sposób taką prośbę,
And the last question, please.
wyjaśnić słuchaczom ten,
I think that this will be a summary question.
z czego można by wnioskować, że w skali kraju wygrała Platforma Obywatelska
Could you
w stosunku do procentu
clearly and simply
wyników,
explain to the listeners the disproportion between the number of the mandates, based on which you could say that Platforma Obywatelska won on the national scale, but the percentages indicate that it's PiS, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, who won. Well, the first thing, as I've said, we're trying to meet your expectations, and we've made some calculations. As you've seen, we've received the results during the conference. We are also going to make the calculations related to the commune councils, powiat councils, and also the offices of mayors and presidents of cities. Ladies and gentlemen, proportional elections are the ones that are conducted for the same and in European Parliament and also the cities having the status of powiat cities. But this does not mean that if a given political party receives 40% of the valid votes, then it will get 40% of the mandates. There is also the system of division of the mandates. And in Poland, the DONT method is used. First of all, there is the electoral threshold, that is only those political parties or electoral committees who have exceeded a given threshold can participate in the division of the mandates. The threshold is 5% for the national scale. The national scale is taken into account. In the case of elections to voivodeship assemblies, the number of valid votes in the scale of the voivodeship is taken into account, and with respect to this total number of votes on the scale of the voivodeship, the percentage is calculated. But then the mandates are divided in individual electoral districts. Hence, we don't have this directly proportional relation. Because it might seem, yes, 40% of valid votes, 40% of the mandates, but it's not so. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ja przypomnę, panie redaktorze, że była prośba o chwilę czasu i ona nastąpiła. Dziękujemy za nią i one są.
Mogę dokończyć. Otóż, panie redaktorze, nie
We
powiedzieliśmy,
didn't say that it's not possible. We just said that we didn't have the results available yet, but during the conference they have been delivered.
Będą zamieszczone na
And they will be placed on the website.
Zrobię to osobiście.
I will personally provide you with the numbers.
Komisji Wyborczej. Dziękuję państwu i
I would like to thank the members of the National Electoral Commission and you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll inform you about the next dates of the press conferences and meetings with the press. Thank you very much.